In undercover investigations, preparation for undercover work should be very thorough to preclude compromising the undercover officer, also the case, to minimize danger to the undercover operative, and clearly to ensure the ultimate success of the investigation. The role of the undercover operative is to gather information and evidence against the suspects and the organization, never to instigate the commission of a crime. Again, this is an entrapment issue. What can be authorized? Misdemeanors or other minor crimes, when criminal activity is authorized, is usually the thing that they will allow. Consensual monitoring. In the federal system, you only need one person as a party to the conversation for consensual monitoring. At the state level, certain states require two-party consent in order to have monitoring of that. You need to know who you work for and what that state does. If you're a federal agent, you don't have to worry about what the state does. The state law does not apply to you. State officer, you have to worry about that. That's something that you have to be concerned with. And also authorized the purchase of stolen or contraband goods. Again, in this case, the undercover may be purchasing these goods and again collecting it as evidence for use and later prosecutions. What can be authorized? The delivery or sale of stolen property. Controlled delivery of drugs not for resale. In other words, generally the government's not going to allow you to deliver drugs for the bad guy. And serious crimes with approval, except in emergencies. Now, what that means is there may be an occasion where they would authorize a serious crime to be committed with prior approval. And again, the except in emergencies is one of those things where you have to be very careful with that. Generally, serious crimes does not include anything that would harm another person. That's pretty much where they're going to fall short. Not only the legal but the ethical implications of having an undercover officer go out and beat somebody up for the bad guys or whatever is just not going to be conducive to a good prosecutive theory. Psychological considerations. Some of the things to think about for someone who's considering undercover work: family and social relationships are strained. You are away for long periods of time. You can't discuss your work. You can't engage in possible normal activities with your family or with your coworkers. You can't go to the FOP lodge, things like that, because then you may be identified with that. Long hours lead to burnout, sometimes complacency. The undercover will lose their focus, misread potentially dangerous situations. Sometimes people have spent a long period of time in undercover work may find it difficult to return to normal law enforcement duties. As you're looking at someone qualified for this type of work, it should be a well-trained and experienced law enforcement officer, someone who has a calm, collected, resourceful person who has good judgment and can make good, sound decisions. They are self-confident. They feel certain that they can play the part of the character they will assume. Again, this is a concern there, is that they have to play the part of there's a character, there's a backstory that will go along with this, and they have to be able to play that out. Have the willpower to avoid drugs, excessive use of intoxicants, and the ability to avoid unwise entanglements with women that are involved in a case, because again, any types of compromises or whatever, kind of like some of the same things we saw with the informants. This is an investigation. This is a criminal enterprise. We do not get social with these people. We do not get business with those people. We may act social, we may act business, but we do everything at arm's length. The undercover has to have the ability to act out the assumed role. Good memory, because they cannot take notes immediately when something happens. They're going to have to get back to a safe spot where they can then write their notes out, where they can submit reports. The appearance and their capabilities have to be consistent with the assumed qualifications. One thing that I read is that one of the problems with undercover coming from street law enforcement is usually appearance. That depending on what you're trying to do, you still look too coppish. The undercover should be grounded in the lingo and techniques of the criminal operations. You could gather this from prior arrest of people within the organization, from informants. There's going to be certain lingo, not only lingo, but linguistic, dialects, the abilities, hobbies, sports, musical talent, and you're going to have the personal background for that particular assignment. In other words, if you can't play the drums, you're not going to go in and pretend that you can play the drums. Authority, there must be the lawful authority for the undercover operation, and final, the undercover operation must be known to the fewest number of persons.